Hey ladies, so today I have something special for you. We're changing it up. I have been going back, well not me, my amazing team has been going back and asking some of the other podcasts that I've actually been on if we could utilize that interview on Mom is in Control. So throughout the weeks to come, you may hear some interviews that I've done in the past with other people. So let's dive into today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think.
Hey, and welcome to Her Best Fucking Life, a podcast about living your best life every day of your life. I'm your host, Sarah Ordo, self-published author, entrepreneur, makeup artist, YouTuber, sobriety enthusiast, and mindset coach. After becoming sober from alcohol, I relentlessly chased after creating my best life possible, and I want to bring you guys along for the ride to create your best fucking life too. Girl, get ready for some no bullshit, honest, real, never sugar-coated realness. Let's fucking do this. All right, you guys, today on Her Best Fucking Life, we have Heather Chauvin. She is a parenting and women's leadership coach, TEDx speaker, among many other things. Heather, I'm so excited to have you on and talk today. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do?
I love this. Every time I'm asked this question, I'm like, dang, who are we? Such a complicated question. I'm Heather Chauvin, the founder of Mom is in Control podcast. And I mean, life gets you to this point where you're asking yourself chronically, who am I? Who do I want to be? Man, mother. And it's so funny because I'm second guessing everything that I'm saying, because a lot of what I teach women is you are so much more than your role as mother, wife, business owner. Like, who are you at your core? So besides raising 3 boys and, being married and running a very successful business, it's like, who am I? What do I want to do? I have such a passion for helping women feel alive in their life. And I'm sure we'll get into that story. But yeah, I mean, what do you want to know? I could go on and on forever.
Well, okay, here's the first thing I feel like we'll dive into, because a lot of people that listen to me know I have shared recently, Andrew and I are, about to start trying for children. So I'm excited to talk about this because it's something I've seen that I'm sure we can dive into, that a lot of us driven, ambitious women of this generation that are doing all the things, that are starting businesses, that are chasing the big dreams, also want to be mothers. And there's kind of like a conflict, for me at least sometimes when I think about it, because I think it's a little bit scary to think about how you're going to balance those two things.
I think this is I was just texting my husband, by the way, because I was like, I just texted him, I put dryer because I can hear my dryer going crazy. And I'm like, this is a perfect example of like motherhood and trying to control and manage everything. And even just being that ambitious woman, because it's like, okay, well, if I'm successful in this area, then I can back off a little bit and then we can start our family and then we can do this. And I will tell you this, I became a mother when I was 18 years old. My son is now 15. So if you can do the math, you'll figure out how old I am. And it has blown my mind. Of course, I definitely wasn't prepared, but watching and observing my friends now that are just starting out with their families or having small children, and they had that mentality that I'm going to go to school, I'm going to, create that quote unquote success, and I'm going to do it all according to how society wants me to do it. And then you have this child and it rocks your world. And what I say is parenting is spiritual growth on steroids. Like, you think you're working on your stuff. You think you're becoming enlightened and, you're trying to manage it all, but they will just show you every wound, every little bruise, nook and cranny that you didn't even know existed, or, the risk and resiliency factor. But here's the thing. Part of my journey and story has been, it was 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer. And I bought into, so our youngest was a year old and I was like late 20s, and I bought into the cultural epidemic that most women live in now, which is go, 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 go. You do not go on your to-do list. And this is not even if you have children, this is in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your dogs, you have your partner, you have your friends. Like, you're supposed to put everybody else's needs before yours. You have clients, like, oh, you want to build a successful business. You definitely need to hustle and grind. And I know that's like very masculine, and we see it, we're learning from those masculine mentors, but this is the thing. I didn't see a lot of women embodying that quote unquote balance. And I actually dislike the word balance. I talk a lot about alignment and how you want to feel. So here I was literally on my deathbed. The doctor's like, you have stage 4. And I'm like, oh, damn. I actually, in my mind was thinking, it's just stage 1. Like, I'm good. I can get past this. And I was drinking my green juices at the time. I was dabbling into yoga. I was reading the personal development books. And I looked at my kids and I'm like, I need to survive. Like, I need to figure this out. And I mean, it's a whole nother rabbit hole in conversation about, somebody just sent me a message on Instagram saying, oh, my friend told me you healed your own stage 4 cancer. And I was like, no. This isn't a race to be won. I had a team around me. I did what I needed to do. But one thing that I really discovered through this process was, Heather, you don't even know how to feel alive in your life. Here you are, terrified that you're going to die. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk. Terrified that you're going to die. And then here you are on the bathroom floor, holding in your tears because you do not want to wake up anybody in the house. So I couldn't even fully self-express how I felt because I didn't want to inconvenience anybody. And I'm sitting there and this like voice goes, you're not afraid of dying. You actually don't know how to feel good. So I had to begin to kind of reverse engineer my life. And because I had such a strong determination to survive, the fear of judgment or disappointing people went away. Like, it blew my mind when someone would come visit me and I had this feeling, we can feel energy. When someone walks in the room and they're an asshole, right? You're like,
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. You're like, you're just not loving your life. Like, you can feel it. People would come over and they would treat me like I was dying. And I was like, please leave. Please leave. I don't want you in my energy. Or you're the one that's having a hard time with what I'm going through. I don't need to manage your emotional behavior and mine. I'm going to work on me. I'm not mothering you too. My children have more emotional intelligence than you do. Please leave my house. And I would just like delete text messages, say I'm not available. Like, they would knock on the door is locked. I'm not getting off the couch. Like, I held these energetic boundaries. Like, how do I want to feel? And it was a representation of how I live my life now. Now I don't do it with such assertive. I was pretty like angry and pissed off, but now I can do it with grace and compassion, where I'm like, oh, thank you so much. But that's just, I don't have the capacity for that right now. Mm-hmm. Where before I'm like, fuck you, stop calling me.
Those are some solid boundaries though. I can respect that.
Well, you figure out how to put out boundaries when, your fight or flight kicks in.
Absolutely. So, I mean, essentially you went into survival mode.
Well,
and it was all about you. But no, I can respect that so incredibly, because I think a lot of people would, the people are coming around and they're projecting their shit onto you in a way when you're just trying to get through it.
Well, the interesting part was I think I was living in survival mode previous to my diagnosis. And then diagnosis actually put me in crisis. Okay. So there's something that I teach. It's called sustainable ambition theory. So if you imagine like a little triangle, and on the bottom is like the biggest, widest part, which is survival mode. And then the layer on top is momentum. And then the layer on top of that is a thrival state. And then this like creative abundance state. I would say 99% of the population are probably living in survival mode, which is this paycheck to paycheck mentality, just getting by. How many cups of coffee can I have today? Like, look at me, look how exhausted I am. And this was what I bought into. This was the lifestyle that I was living. So I was already in survival mode. I never knew what it felt like to live in a state of momentum where, I'm implementing these healthy habits and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have more money in my bank account. Like I have the mental capacity I don't need to sleep all the time to quote unquote restore my body. So when I got sick, I dropped down into this crisis state. And then as I started to implement these new mindsets, tools, and thinking, and I bumped up to survival mode, and then I bumped up to a state of momentum, that's actually when all of your limiting beliefs come up. When you're like, who am I to feel good? Who am I to have my cake and eat it too?
Yeah, it's like you uncover all of the trauma and the shit
Mm-hmm.
to come out and judge everything you're trying to work through.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy. So let's talk. I want to talk about your TED Talk. It was called Dying to Be a Good Mother. Tell us a little bit about that, what that was like. Dive us through that talk, because from what I've seen, and it's a very impactful talk. It's very deep. I think a lot of women would really resonate with a ton of things in it. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So when I had the opportunity to do a TEDx talk, I remember pitching myself on, this notion that I got sick and this form of like reinvention, but I had no idea what the title was going to be. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about. And this is pretty much how I live my life. I'm like, throw noodles at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
That's like an entrepreneurial thing to do, is like pitch yourself, get the gig, and then figure it out.
Then figure out what you're going to do. Yeah.
And then execute and show up day up. So when I got on stage, well, previous to that, but I'm working through, this is interesting because, and the book writing process too, because I'm in that as well, is you kind of like begin to go, what did I do to get to where I am? Like, how did I become this person that I am today? And some of it can be personality. Some of it can be a mixture of, environmental causes, how you grew up. But then along the way, there's something that you've done to get you to where you are. So as I'm looking through this process, they're like, what's your title? And I'm like, I have no idea. And then you want to come up with something catchy. I'm like, dying to be a good mother. I'm like, this is the cultural epidemic that we are dying as women to be good people in the world. And mothering to me does not mean biological children. Like, I believe all women are mothers. We're all nurturers. Animals, people, like children, biological or not, it doesn't matter. We are, then as I continue on this journey, I realized, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I was such a feminist, and how this whole conversation about women and what keeps us stuck. But we've been put into this box of you serve everybody else before yourself. And the definition to me of dying is not just physically, which is what my body was doing. There were signs and symptoms there years before my physical body gave out on me. My soul. What does that mean? People are going to be like, your soul, desires, right? No, we're taught to cut that off. That does not exist. You want to travel the world? You can't do that. You have responsibilities. You want to write a book? You can't do that. That's not realistic. You want to play piano for a living? That's not going to make you money. You can't go to art school. You have to go to business school. Like, all of these things that we're told as women, and yes, men, but I'm just talking for women. When we're saying no to ourselves over and over and over and over again, you are killing that part of your body. So if it's your spirit, it's going to slowly just shrivel away, just like a plant if you're not watering it. And then one day you wake up, you go, who am I? I'm miserable. I'm angry. I'm resentful. I'm exhausted. I don't want to get out of bed. What's wrong with me? So what's your first response? You go to the doctor, and then they try to label you with something, or here's a medication, or I don't know what to do. But nobody ever teaches us how to cultivate this part of ourselves that nobody can see. As women, we're told what we should look like on the outside, and we're taught that we need to drink water and eat veggies. Okay, you can do that. But on a deeper level, if there's something inside of you that's screaming for your attention and you constantly avoid it, you're never going to feel fulfilled or content. And that's my definition of dying to be a good mother, is we're taught to not listen to ourselves to be good people in the world. And I believe it's the opposite.
Yeah. And it's funny because I can even think to like my mom's generation and the generations, before those. And it's kind of like that theme of And I mean, it's sad when I think back on some memories from my childhood where it was like, just take care of everyone, keep the house going, be the wife, have the house clean, like don't speak up. Like it was just, yeah, like I can see that totally where women were just like suffocating.
Mm-hmm.
And they, they couldn't speak up about it.
Yeah. I will never forget this conversation I had with a family member when I became a mother at 18. One of my kind of mantras to myself was do not become a statistic like that. I just didn't want to be a teen mom statistic. And I think it was just the rebel in me, the one that was, so someone would say, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it just to prove you're wrong.
Yes.
So that got me far. But then after a while, it was a detriment to my growth. Mm-hmm. But I remember someone saying to me, oh, now that you're a mother, you have to buy the cheap shampoo, because I liked investing in my hair, whether it was getting it colored or, I don't know, not going to the dollar store for my shampoo. I didn't really understand what this person meant, but I knew, I don't know what it was inside of me. I was smart enough to know why she was saying it, which was you have to give everything to your children now and nothing to yourself. But even then, at the age of 18, I thought, that's stupid. Because if I don't take care of myself, I'm immediately going to become angry and resentful, right? And I'm going to project that onto my child. I will never do that to my children. I will never make my children responsible for my happiness. Mm-hmm. And it is not their job to keep me happy. I want them to go out into the world, look back and go, are you okay, Mom? And I'm like, I am more than okay. And that is not even your responsibility to hold me up. So that was a huge aha moment for me. And I think I picked it up very quickly because we know what our childhood experience was like. And I truly believe, I'm like, we all have to do our work, right? Mm-hmm. I've had to do a lot of work on, mothering and parenting, but looking back, I'm like, our parents did the best that they possibly could. And our job is to say thank you and, kind of passing the baton like a relay race and going, thank you. I'm going to just, I'm going to continue to try to unpack this stuff and to take it to the next, the next level and the next level and the next level. Because what's the point of, you can't create change if you're just doing the same thing over and over again. But of course, that causes conflict and resistance within yourself, but also the generation before when they're like, why are you doing things differently? And it's like, because look how I turned out. I want things to change. So it's been interesting for sure too.
Yeah. It's definitely something I think about, I'm 31, I want to start having children. And I do think kind of about that, like, oh shit, like everything's going to change. And there are little things, kind of like your shampoo example that someone said to you, where people have made comments like, well, you're not going to be able to do all the businesses, the work you're doing, or like, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to go on trips. And I'm just sitting here like, but why? Like, why? I mean, I get you want to absolutely be a good parent, provide for your child, give them everything they need. But at the same time, it's like, so you're supposed to give up your entire life to do that?
Well, what's been interesting is, so we have 3 boys, 15, 10, and 7. So the oldest is in high school. The other 2 are in middle school. Mm-hmm. And, when you are in the online world or the coaching world, or just living this freedom-based lifestyle where you're chronically saying, how do I want to feel? What can I create in my life? And you're doing that. It was this winter, stopped and realized the only thing that was holding me back or holding my husband and I back from traveling in the winter was my children's education and the system in which they're in. And I was like, I did not build all of this to stay here for an educational system that is built to institutionalize my children and put them in a 9-to-5. So I already see the conflict between my mindset and belief system within myself and parenting that is directly confrontational with what they're being taught on a daily basis. So then we decided to do our own thing. And then of course our school system striked, and then they would get out like random times. And like, ladies, gentlemen, this is the universe saying, just keep being you. Like it's right. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. So I'm curious, just personal question. We talked a lot about, you refuse to kind of give up taking care of yourself and, being a good person to your own like wants and needs. I'm curious because I have heard a lot of people open up about being judged or criticized even by other mothers or being called like, you know, the bad mom, the working mom, because they're not doing it the same way some other people are. So I'm curious, just because you are so open and you are on the online space and, you know, essentially any mother from your children's school could look you up on the internet and see what you're doing. Have you ever received flack or criticism from anyone for any of the things that you're doing?
Not to my face, actually.
Well, that's great. Good.
Yeah, I don't get a lot of like, I don't know if it's just the way I present my material. I don't get a lot of hate mail or anything like that. At the beginning, I did get a few. I used to swear a lot and I still do.
Yeah.
So people would say, Heather, I love your message about parenting and life, but your F-bombs, I just can't stand them. And I would reply back and be like, I am so fucking sorry. Here's 3 other parenting podcasts that you can go listen to.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. But I think with that said, it was being unapologetic about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to feel in the world. I also now understand that other people's judgments are a projection of their own insecurities.
Yes.
And I see that now. Like, I don't go into, I mean, of course I still get triggered by things, but if somebody says something to me or about me, and sometimes it's not, they don't even have to write a comment or something. It could be you're in their energy and you just know they're judging you, but like, oh, that's so great. But you're just like, you're judging me.
Right.
I thoroughly enjoy making people uncomfortable as well. And I've developed a practice for it. So I like your mug. It says not sorry. Love this.
It's my book coming out in 2 weeks.
I love this. I love it. But it's a perfect example of making people uncomfortable. I would say, okay, if you're projecting onto me right now, I'm curious why me feeling good or me doing this, like why you're paying attention to that.
Yeah.
There are so many people in the world that I do not, connect with. And I'm like, but they're serving somebody and they have a community and let them be, right?
Right.
One thing that actually really, really bothers me, because I truly believe, first of all, I'm such an advocate for women helping women, like women helping women thrive. I don't care who you are. Like, we need to stick together now more than ever. So when it's women judging women, there is like, that's so unhealthy and so cruel, and talk about bullying. Like, that's just awful. So when people do that to me, I can now come to this place of compassion and say, what is it that you see in me that you really want? Right? Like, why don't you just unsubscribe and go away? There's something that keeps drawing you back. And why don't you feel you can have that too in your life? And if they're open to it, I've had these conversations with people, and oftentimes, then they'll break down and they'll say, my husband won't let me, or I can't, I'm riddled with guilt and it's paralyzing. I'm like, okay, but I didn't get to where I am today, just like all or nothing mentality overnight. I remember the first time I went to a coffee shop by myself. I think our third child was born. And I was so desperate to feel something like, I wanted space. I felt like a cow because I was breastfeeding all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need space. I want to run away from my life. And I went to the coffee shop, and I was, Instagram wasn't that big back then, but I thought, hey, people, pay too much for lattes and write in journals in coffee shops. So maybe I'll do that too. And I sat there and I was so incredibly uncomfortable because I had to feel all the shit that I was avoiding before I could feel those like alive feelings, the creative feelings. And people aren't willing to go there. So I'm like, you got to feel before you do the work. And that's the uncomfortable, what I call brave zone, when people you gotta go through the shit to find the light on the other side. But yeah,
Amen.
I don't take it. Honestly, I could talk about this all day and get on a soapbox, but I actually feel the mommy blogger world, even though people want to be connected, there's a few, I won't say their names because I don't want to call them out, but I think they're like, it's very toxic. People like to connect with their pain. It's like, oh, you're in pain too. Okay. I'm not alone. I'm like, ladies, we need to empower each other, not even like continue talking about all these expectations and all of this. And like, there is another way. And if people are searching for support and this is what they're finding, this is what it is. Bring your coffee, bring the whole fucking mug, like bring the whole coffee container. Like, no, ladies, you're secretly dying inside and you just keep perpetuating this like social epidemic. So I find it very toxic, actually.
No, that's interesting because I think there are so many mom bloggers, with different approaches to things. I follow a couple that are even more like fashion mom bloggers, I would say. So I feel like they don't even open up about that stuff as much, but I have seen a lot where they do talk about, they just focus on a lot more of like the negative, the difficulty, the how to like navigate and survive through it basically, where it takes on like a really negative tone. And I feel like when you're doing that, you're just creating like a cesspool where everybody's going to be like, oh my God, yeah, I know. Me too. Let's talk about how bad this is.
And people don't know where I'm not perfect either. We don't know where to find the line between not talking about the negative all the time because it is our true experiences. But what I've really discovered is instead of getting annoyed with everybody, because we can do that and go down that rabbit hole, how can I show up in the world? And maybe one of those women will follow me, or she might see me at a conference and she'll be like, shit, like her whole world is rocked. And just because I am embodying something that she desires and she was looking for it, that might be the little shift that she needs. So instead of trying to be like, hey, there's another way, or you could do this, or you could do that. It's like, just be your best self and you will inspire. I always say you will inspire or trigger other people just because you're being you.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
So you just had a live event in Detroit, the Alive event. Tell us a little bit about what that was.
A live event called Alive.
What did you guys like? What was the theme? Was it more of like a one-day thing? Like, how did you run it?
Yeah, so it was actually 2 days, but you could attend day 1 or day 2. And day 1, we actually had speakers coming in and talking about capacity and just, women in general, of how we're getting in our own way, how to be brave with your life. I kind of talked a little bit about my story, but what I love doing is bringing women together and having those uncomfortable, vulnerable conversations. So that was day 1. And then day 2 was really interesting. So a lot of the women that came, of course, are these ambitious go-getters. They're either flying in or driving in, and creating the space for themselves is typically, we're resistant to that. So day 2, there was a lot of like silent space where it's like, okay, what are you working on? I made sure everyone knew what they were working on, whether it was personal or professional, and they did the work. So we would have kind of like working periods, whether it was like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, have your time off. We would have little breakout sessions, and they did the work. And it was so interesting to me that at the end of the day, a lot of the women, I'm like, okay, what was your biggest aha moment? Like, I already know what I need to do. I just need to give myself permission to do it. I need to give myself the space. And I tell myself all the time, it's going to be so hard and so difficult. And then when I actually do it, I realize I'm good at this. But I've been dimming my light to make other people comfortable. So it was really, really neat. And then we capped the day off with a trip to the Schwitz, the spa. Do you know the Schwitz is?
No, what is the Schwitz? Do I need to know this?
It's like an old 1930s bathhouse or something. It was, yes, you would, I think it's a very
I'm gonna have to look that
authentic
up.
Detroit experience. And if you Google them, you'll be wildly disappointed with their marketing.
Okay. So don't rely on the marketing. Just go see it in person.
Yeah. And it is also in a very sketchy area in Detroit. But when you were in there, there was just some type of energy, maybe because we were doing all this personal development work, but it was like that emotional release that everyone needed. And it was like a magical little bow on everything. So
yeah,
it's all about being alive. Like, what do you want in your life? And people are constantly just spewing data at us and information and telling us who we need to be in the world. I think it's really important to say, who do you want to be in the world?
Yes. Love it. And you have a book coming out. Tell us about the book. I want to hear all about it.
Oh man.
Or
So
at least plug a little bit.
we're in the birthing phases of the book. It should be out in January-ish, maybe late January 2021.
Okay. What can people expect the topic of the book?
Yeah, so it's more of like a teaching memoir. I want people to have when you're in personal development, you get annoyed of personal development after a while. And I want people to sit back and enjoy the book and realize they're not alone. There's hope in the world that you can be the woman, the wife, the mother that you want to be, but you can also dream bigger. And if you are in that pickle when you're overwhelmed, chronically overwhelmed or exhausted, or you're just saying like, is this my life? Like, is this it? Also giving you those little tools and strategies just based through my stories and my coaching. But I don't want it to be a how-to book. I do not want you to read thinking you need a PhD as you're going through this book. So I want you to enjoy it as well as, if you want to take action, you can. But yeah, a good read that will probably make you laugh and cry and do all the things.
Awesome. Those are the best books though. I love when they have a little entertainment, a little real life, because there are so many dry, I will say, personal development books.
And if I have to read another one of those, it's like you want to write the book that you want to read, right?
Exactly.
You want to be proud of it. And I'm the first to say it's taken me a while to get here. And I've had a lot of help with this book to get it to where I want it to be. And I feel like that was a huge belief I had to get over, that I need to do everything by myself, like meaning the writing of the book. And now that I have somebody who's like helping me write it, but also like help pull some of these stories out, I'm like, oh my goodness, I would have been doing like the reader a huge disservice if I thought I could do this all myself.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Heather, thank you so much for coming on today and talking with us. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find you if they want to connect with you on social media, follow you, all the things?
Yeah, so I hang out a lot on Instagram. You can find me, just look my name up, Heather Chauvin. Podcast Mom is in Control, or just go to my name, heatherchauvin.com.
Awesome. So you guys, I love the links down in the show notes. Definitely check out Heather. And again, Heather, thank you so much for coming on today and talking with us all about parenting and just thriving as a woman in motherhood.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been amazing.
All right, you guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I hope you loved today's episode. If you really loved it, you guys can leave me a rating and review on iTunes, and make sure you guys are subscribed so you never miss a new episode the minute it goes live.
Now, if this conversation was interesting to you and felt unique and a little different, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take me up on my invitation to join the Brave Society. So if you're a female small business owner, this is likely your community if you're resonating with this podcast and the things we're talking about over here, because they are very much the essence of how we talk about things in the Brave Society. The Brave Society was founded on 3 basic principles. 1, community. How can we come together and become a marketplace of business owners where we can do business together, where we can open doors for each other, where we can collaborate with like-minded, credible business owners? 2, nobody should ever shortchange their leadership development. I see too many times women spread thin, making investments in their businesses as they grow and shortchanging their leadership development. And I'm here to solve that problem. You can make the investments that you need to make in, say, your marketing or your branding or your website, and develop yourself as a leader. And the third thing that we come together for is to really stand at the pinnacle of our leadership, which John Maxwell talks a lot about in his work. And he says that we're at the pinnacle of our leadership when we are a leader who develops leaders who develops leaders. And what I ask the women of the Brave Society to do is to take what they learn in the Brave Society and bring it into the world, into their communities, into their families, to their clients and their customers, and to really continue to develop more leaders on this planet. If this sounds interesting to you, I want you to go over to the show notes and click on the link, or you can come find me on Instagram. I'm at the Tara Newman, and ask me any questions you need to about joining the Brave Society. If you've found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bold Leadership Revolution podcast. This episode has ended, but our work continues online. Head over to theboldleadershiprevolution.com, where you'll find links to any resources mentioned in today's episode, along with other valuable tips and information that will help you lead bold. That's theboldleadershiprevolution.com.